When I say narcissistic abuse can be deadly, I'm not exaggerating, I'm not embellishing, and I'm not talking about shooting you or stabbing you or strangling you or however people kill each other, but I'm talking about the serious consequences of emotional stress and anxiety imposed upon you by narcissists. Narcissistic abuse, particularly focusing on the smear campaign, which is something that virtually every narcissist that I've encountered engages in. What happens? Stop and think about this for a moment. We're going to tie these together. But what happens to you personally, emotionally, when you are the victim of a smear campaign? Well, what happens is this: you become very lonely. People who are your friends, people who are family members, your support system, many of those people, sometimes all of them, or even a majority of them, can have a tremendous negative effect on you psychologically, emotionally. Stress you out, cause anxiety. But kill you? Are you kidding me? No, I'm not kidding you. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. This is from the Centers for Disease Control, CDC.gov. This is a government website. The article is Loneliness and Social Isolation Linked to Serious Health Conditions. So when you are stressed out, when you are abused by narcissistic abuse, here are the very likely consequences when you find yourself isolated and lonely. Number one is this: social isolation significantly increased a person's risk of premature death from all causes. I mean, there it is in black and white. CDC.gov, I'll put a link in the description section if I don't forget. You can read this for yourself. So when we talk about narcissistic abuse, we're not talking about the inconvenience of somebody being a jerk. We're talking about deadly consequences. Serious, deadly consequences and serious health risk. It says a risk that may rival those of smoking, obesity, and physical inactivity. So what are the things that are detrimental to your health? If you could just name them off the top of your head. Most people would say being overweight, smoking, and being lazy or lack of activity. Well, you might add a fourth one, and that is loneliness or isolation, which is caused by the smear campaign of the narcissist. And I read somewhere that the effect is about the same. When I was preparing for this presentation, the effect is roughly the same as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So a narcissist is not going to force you to smoke 15 cigarettes a day. Probably not. I mean, some of them may, but I doubt it. It could happen, but the effects are identical. This is serious stuff. I mean, the next point is social isolation was associated with about a 50% increased risk in dementia. So when the narcissist abuses you, causes you to withdraw, be lonely, socially isolated, he or she is increasing your risk of dementia by 50%. Poor social relationships characterized by social isolation or loneliness was associated with a 29, get out of the way so you can see the screen, 29% increased risk of heart disease and a 32% increased risk of a stroke. So is the narcissist giving you heart disease? Is the narcissist causing you to have a stroke? Yes. I mean, possibly yes, according to this. Once again, I've already said it a couple times, but this is very serious. Loneliness was associated with higher rates of depression, anxiety, and I can't say the S word because YouTube doesn't like it, it'll ding your video because, they have to be careful. Again, serious stuff. Loneliness among heart failure patients was associated with nearly 4 times increased risk of death. So if you already have a problem with heart failure conditions, narcissistic abuse that leads to loneliness and isolation increases your chances of dying fourfold. 68% increased risk of just hospitalization. This is among heart failure patients. And 57% rather increased risk of emergency department visits. So what am I going to say? I'm going to say this is serious stuff. Let's tile this together, do some takeaways, and I read somewhere, again, doing preparation for this, that about 44 million Americans, and there's over 300 million of us, so you do the math, it's, 12, 13%, experience loneliness, not all from narcissistic abuse, but, that is, we would call it an epidemic, I suppose. And one of the contributing factors is narcissistic abuse. And to some people, when I was putting down some notes, I understand that for some people, those of us who are autistic, there is a real challenge of being with other people. There is stress and anxiety. Sometimes the alternative is worse. Being lonely is better than being in a crowd, because sometimes when you're in a crowd, you are lonely. And those of you in that situation, I just want to mention that so you know we're not leaving you out. Sometimes it can be worse. But number 2, a lot of times we're not going to risk approaching people who have shunned us because they have succumbed to narcissistic smear campaigns and they believe the nonsense. So if we approach them, we know they're going to reject us because they already have, right? As I was thinking about this, the thought that came to my mind was, who cares? They're going to reject me anyhow, so I am going to approach them. Why? Well, for one, that puts me in control, not the narcissist. The narcissist doesn't want me talking to these people. That's why they isolated me in the first place. So I'm going to take number 3, control. Number 4 is I'm going to approach these people, interact with these people in a positive manner. Why? Because, just simple, basic psychology. When you are cheerful around other people, it elevates their mood. When you are friendly to other people, it elevates their mood. So this is intervention. And the person may reject me, but still, I'm going to have a positive, they can't help it. I'm going to have a positive effect on that person's mood. And they're going to remember that. It's going to make a small, maybe large, inroad into their thinking. So the narcissist is smearing me, convincing these people that I'm poison, they need to stay away from me, but I just talked to him a little while ago and didn't seem like poison to me. They can't help but to think that. I mean, you can't unhear what you heard. You can't dismiss these impressions. And so when you approach people, you're taking control by enhancing their mood. That's number 4. Number 5, personally, why don't I just send them an email? Well, you can if you want. How about if I send them a text message or contact them on Facebook? Fine. But have you ever sent somebody a text message or email, whatever, online, and they misunderstood it because missing were the nonverbal cues, the facial expressions, the body language. They misread what you said because they were filling in the blanks in their imagination. For example, I had somebody once send me an email in all caps, and I thought to myself, without even thinking about it, I thought, man, what is she yelling at me about? Why is she so mad at me? And no sooner had the thought come into my mind that I got another email, and she said, oh, by the way, My keyboard is broke and I'm writing in all caps. I'm not yelling at you because when people write in all caps, that's a nonverbal cue that says we're yelling at you. And that's one of many. You've probably had that experience before where you have sent somebody a text message and they didn't get your meaning. They misunderstood what you were saying. When you approach people personally, you have the advantage of those nonverbal cues, the tone of your voice, the inflections of your voice, your body language. All of that enhances what you're saying, and it reduces the risk of them misunderstanding you negatively, which will just support what the narcissist is doing. Hey, you don't want to support the narcissist, right? So, I'm not saying don't contact them by text messaging or whatever. What I'm saying is, in my experience, I found the personal contact is preferred. Show them you are not the monster the narcissist made you out to be. All right, now here's the sixth thing I wanted to bring up. You're going to think this is corny. I know you are, but I've tried it, and I'm telling you, this actually works. So if you are apprehensive about talking to somebody who is shunning you because of narcissistic abuse, the smear campaign, practice. Practice talking to the person. Maybe you're in a car alone, and just imagine the person is sitting there next to you and verbally speak what you're going to say. Speak it out loud, Or you can do it at home when you're in your room by yourself so people don't think you're crazy. Maybe I'll take it a walk somewhere. Just kind of visualize and even vocalize what you're going to say to this person. That helps. I know that may seem trite and trivial, and some people may think it's kind of silly, but I know from my experience, 70 plus years now, just sharing with you some of the things I've learned. It works. It helps me. I can say that. There's a red dot, lower right hand of your screen. Click on that. You can become part of our YouTube family. Don't forget to click the bell so you get notifications. Lower left-hand screen is a rectangle. When you click on the rectangle, you have access to our video library of our past videos. So if you enjoy this, there's a whole lot more where this came from. And we'll see you all next time.